Sorry, which one is 18?
The South Dublin Quietway. For those who were on the last council, you'll remember this.
Yeah. So no, I asked a question about it last month because I was just curious to see, again, that 5-year plan. There was no mention of it on that. So last council term, there was a plan to bring in a South Dublin Quietway, and the committee at that time in 2019 voted against putting that plan to a public consultation. So there wasn't a vote to abandon the plan. The Environment and Transportation Department, I'm informed, considers the scheme to be beneficial to the community, and that recommendation that they made back in 2019 still stands. So I think we're in a new term, a new committee, and arguably a new attitude by this council and by the current government to the provision of walking and cycling infrastructure and new needs within our communities. So on that basis, I think it's appropriate to reopen that discussion and look at how we can actually provide a sustainable transport solution that links the communities on the south side of the city. And it very much feeds into what others have just been saying there about bus connects and about giving people options really that help them choose things other than the private car for short journeys from community to community. So sorry, I'll have to call up and see what the response was there. But
I'd like to support that motion because I think it's a great idea, and it did fall off. Sorry, excuse me.
Mannix, just let her finish. Sorry, she was looking up the answer.
Yeah, no, I am finished. So they've said they will engage with local communities if we want to put this back on the agenda and open the conversation again.
Okay, Mary Friel, Mannix, Claire Byrne.
This was a highly contentious issue in the last council. An awful lot of the work was done under the radar. A lot of it was done in the traffic SPC, and it caused huge division in the area. Now, I don't know how you can say it fell off the agenda. It was never agreed at any stage. It was a vague motion, like exactly what's there today, put down by Councillor Paddy Smith, and it was all handled at the traffic department, and nobody knew what was going on. And then this proposal came back to us, and people were absolutely up in arms about it. It was causing major problems. As far as I'm concerned, we voted it down. It's very clearly voted down. And if we want something like that, it's got to be put in a proper motion, precisely what you're proposing. That, as far as I'm concerned, is far too vague. It's everything and nothing, and that could become something. I really don't think that we should support it. But if you do want to put something very specific that we know exactly what you're referring to and where and exactly, South Dublin is very general. So I would suggest that we don't support this today, but that, if anybody wants to put a more specific proposal, then we know what we're dealing with. Thank you.
Claire and then Mannix. Is that the way I said it?
Mannix and Claire.
Go on then, Mannix.
Yeah, thank you. It's just that I think there is great merit in it, and I think it was mishandled at the last council meeting by the councillor who went off on a solo run on it. But I think the idea, and the principle of Quietways is basically, it's a bit like, initiatives that they run out in other parts of the city. So yeah, I agree with Councillor Freehill. There was controversy, there was concern about it. But I think in principle, it's something that's well worth visiting, and we can bring it here and we can work it out and see whether there's any value in it. But I think, it can complement what has already been rolled out. And I think it's important that we actually do take a bit of ownership on it, rather than the rather hysterical way. The other infrastructure, like, temporary cycle lanes and, dining zones are being rolled out. This is something that we can get our teeth in, and we can really dig down into it with the consent of the communities, informed consent. So I think it's important, and I think it's worthwhile revisiting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Claire Byrne.
Never thought I'd hear the day Councillor Flynn actually supporting the cycling initiative.
I
But
support
as
looking
one
at it.
as
I'm
one
always
of
in
the
support of
three,
a cycling initiative, Claire.
when you're not
Particularly
taking
when
judicial
no,
reviews against them.
excuse me,
Sorry,
Claire.
Councillor, it's
Your
my turn.
smart ass remarks are not
Mannix,
good
Mannix,
ears. You
Excuse me,
understand me?
Mannix,
They're
take that
smart
back.
ass remarks.
Mannix,
They're
Take that
smart
back,
ass remarks.
Mannix.
I will not take it back.
Mannix.
It's
How
a
dare
smart
you
ass.
call me? How dare you say that to me?
Will you control yourself, Mannix?
Okay, everybody, look, a normal banter is fairly reasonable. I'm as good at it myself as anybody. But let's all have a little bit of respect, okay? Continue.
I was merely going to say, as one of the three councillors that actually supported the Quietway when it was first raised a couple of years ago, I'd like to support Carolyn, her re-raising this issue. Yes, it could have been handled better, but there was an awful lot of misinformation that was deliberately distributed at the time to the residents, a lot of fear mongering. So I think it's something that we should revisit, and let's hope that we can do it, handle it in a better way this time, with more transparency and more actual real information being circulated. So I'd like to thank Councillor Moore for raising this issue again. Thank you.
Thanks. Lord Mayor?
Chairman.
Yeah, I have you in, Paddy. I have you in.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Lord Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Seems like every cycle route is a contentious issue. Just so we know, Councillor Panny Smith was one of the proposers, but also Councillor Patrick Costello. And I really would like that if people aren't here to be able to defend themselves, that we don't actually say that they did anything that was wrong in how they proposed it. I know how contentious that cycle route was. We got mail directly to our house calling us all sorts of things in relation to that cycle route. So I would ask that people, before we start this again, division on how a cycle route would be, that we just, as Councillor Friel rightly said, that we have a proposal in place. I would fully support Councillor Moore's proposal, because I think there's an opportunity here. We are looking at a different management plan for Belmont Avenue at the moment in terms of traffic. That was one of the routes that the cycleway between Belmont and Margot Road was going to happen. So why don't we take the whole of how traffic is happening within the East Area Committee at the moment and see how we can propose a quiet way in, because I think there's a great opportunity here when we look at the different measures. So yeah, fully support Councillor Moore. Thanks.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Paddy McCartan.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, in my 3 years as chair of the area committee, I don't think there was any more contentious issue than that proposal. And I agree with Councillor Freehill that unless we have something very specific, I don't particularly want to go back down that road again. The way it was handled, yes, in hindsight, I probably didn't have enough information on it, and I was led by my Councillor Smith, whose intentions, he was well intentioned, but it managed the way the whole thing was assembled to alienate so much of the local community. And I'm not sure at this stage, 2 years later, whether it'd be appropriate unless we have very specific detail rather than vague proposals. So at this stage, I wouldn't be in favour of it. And I'd also ask Councillor Flynn, now I know he's in a bit of a flap over being a general election candidate, but I'd ask him to remove that objectionable remark he made to Councillor Claire Byrne. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I sorry, did somebody want to come in there? No.
Yeah, myself, Chairman,
no,
I'd like to withdraw those remarks that I made to Councillor Byrne.
Okay.
In the
Thank
interest
you, Councillor Flynn.
of proper conduct. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Apology
You're welcome,
accepted.
Fair play to you for withdrawing that. It's a good thing. Contrary to what a lot of people say about me, I actually have supported most cycling routes. Sometimes after a lot of questioning, but I've usually cast my vote for them in the end of the day. I think the idea of the Quietway is not a bad idea.
Absolutely.
But there are two big issues that I recall from the last time that were simply ignored. One was the issue of security, because a lot of back gardens, back entrances rather, that people felt were being exposed. And the second issue, and this is just from memory, there may have been other issues as well, there was the issue of Marlborough Road, which was simply ignored, like as if it didn't exist. And we were going to suddenly do something with the traffic without ever explaining that. I actually go with the Lord Mayor a bit on this. I think that we need to look at roads in a much more holistic way. And there is the Belmont Avenue plan that we've been promised now every month for about 3 or 4 months. I would actually ask that we would get that plan first and then see what the implications are in terms of the spin-off effects, or what can we do with with Marlborough Road, Belmont Avenue. I think we actually have to look at the 4 parallel roads together: Beaver Row, Eglinton Road, Marlborough Road, and Belmont Avenue as a sort of.
It was right up to
just let me finish. Just wait a minute. And I think we need to look at those together. So my own instinct is that we're actually not ready yet for this, but I think the idea is worth pursuing. And I could see myself voting for it when we've worked out, in particular, the Belmont and Marlborough Road bits. Personally, I would like to come back to it when we have those. And personally, I would vote to defer this motion because I just don't think we're ready for it yet. And I don't want to see a situation like happened the last time round, when an idea that had a lot of good in it was abandoned because there wasn't sufficient work put into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened the last time round.
Absolutely.
Chair, can I come in?
I actually have my hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
sure. Yeah, okay. I'm going to let you come in, Jane, but somebody else said, can you come in? And I don't know who that was.
Anne Feeney. Yeah.
Okay, so James and then Anne Feeney. So I would prefer a deferral on this at this stage, just to finish my own remarks. James and then Anne.
So am I going first? Am I going first? Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, look, like Councillor Moore, I wasn't on the last council, and there's a few of us that weren't on the last council. And I was familiar with it from the election campaign, because it did come up in a few places. But I wonder, there's a lot of sense, I think, in what Councillor Lacey has just said there, and Councillor Chu in respect of Belmont Avenue and the Lord Mayor. And I wonder, might the halfway house between all of this is that we just agree that the next Southeast Area Committee, subject to the department's availability or whatever, is that they could do a presentation on, warts and all. Here's what was proposed then, here were the problems then, and we kind of just go through it all, and then we see what the next steps from that are. Because otherwise, I think it's just we're going to be starting it the wrong way. We're going to be starting it the wrong way around if we do it this way.
See the feasibility study on it.
Yeah. And Feeney.
Yep, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was around the last time when Councillor Paddy Smith put this forward, and he had been working on it for quite a while, I think, with Brendan O'Brien and traffic, and there was, an awful lot of work and thinking went into it. But I think where it failed in terms of was in relation to how it was managed then in terms of engagement with people, and fully appreciating maybe some pinch points along the way, be it Garville Avenue and up on Turrenure in terms of taking away a wall. So changing the whole, if you like, what would you say, environment for particular roads, and creating maybe issues around parking or whatever. Since then, a lot of things have changed. We've had school zones. We now have a movement towards the law of 30 kilometers per hour, and a whole COVID, of course, and all of the new segregated cycling ways and all of the rest. But to start in on this now, without learning some of the lessons from the last time, would be, I think, just setting it up for failure. And I would ask that Councillor Moore would defer it also, and until more thought is given in relation to the problem, if you like, or the difficulties that it may present for particular areas. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anne. I have 3 hands up, but I think they've all, Mary Friel, Anne Feeney, can you take down your hand? And Paddy, can you take down your hand? And Chair, do you want to speak again? Okay, if everybody could just automatically
just
take
simply
their
to say there were some very technical errors made up at the Turrenure end in Ashfield. I mean, it wasn't possible to get the gradient, that they were taking that wall down, and the distance, you'd have to kind of go half across a road in order to get the gradient right. So the whole thing just didn't stand up. So I really do think that it would be better to defer it. With Bus Connects coming in now, I think we need to know how we stand with Bus Connects first before we can go back to this, and I think it would be sensible to leave it for the moment. Thank you.
Can we agree, James Gagan's suggestion, that we get a report?
Sorry, Chair, I've had my hand up.
Okay, no hand is coming up, Claire, so there's something wrong with your system. Go ahead.
Yeah, apologies for my system. I agree with everyone that was on the last council that has spoken, particularly Councillor McCartan, Councillor Freehill and Councillor Feeney. The Quietway, in a nutshell, didn't go ahead because there was a feasibility study at the outset which said this would not work. So therefore, it was frugal to expend public money where a feasibility study said it won't work. So there was a lack of public consultation. They were all moot points that came after the fact that the study said it won't work. And all the issues that were raised about walls being knocked down and cul-de-sacs being opened up and people's lives essentially being changed without public consultation, but more importantly, without a study that said it could possibly work. So I agree, it should be deferred, and I'd hate to see the same mistakes made all over again. And again, quite like the Sandymount cycleway, it wasn't about cycling. It was about the way in which things are done. So if a feasibility study says no, well, really, should public monies be expended thereafter? So I agree with all the former speakers.
Okay, there's a couple of options. One of them would be that we would arrange a meeting, a presentation to the South East Area Committee and just have a normal presentation, normal way. Or the alternative is that we would arrange a meeting, a separate meeting with Chris Manzira, who was the chief official responsible. And we just had that round table type meeting going through the roads. Is there any preference for either of those? Claire O'Connor.
I think the South East Area committee meeting.
Yeah, that'd be agreeable.
Okay, presentation to next to the South East Area meeting, and if we note the motion rather than reject it.
Agreed.
Is that agreed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks everybody. I
Agreed.
think motion number 21 was traffic as well. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, motion number 21, Councillor